look at a question that has a verbal scenario and equations. Let's look at our question. In which equation does C represent the number of cars the business had at the end of the day on Monday? So let's rewrite that. Equation, get me lead, apologize. Equation blank represents C, the number of cars the business had at the end of the day on Monday. That's a long sentence. Okay, so we're looking for, recap, the number of cars the business had at the end of the day on Monday. So let's go into our question and look. There's a lot of information here. A business that rents cars is open for 8 hours on Monday. So that means everything that's going to be happening on Monday is going to happen in those 8 hours. On Monday morning, the business had 45 cars. That sounds like a starting amount to me because the business day starts in the morning. So starting amount. Okay? The business rented means that you're not going to have them anymore. If you need to borrow a car from a company, you rent it from them. So the business rented 3 cars to customers during each of the first 5 hours. So in this instance, rented is going to be subtraction 3 cars to customers during each of the first 5 hours. So in hour 1, they rented 3 cars. Hour 2, they rented 3 cars. Hour 3, they rented 3 cars. Hour 4, they rented 3 cars. Hour 5, they rented 3 cars. So we have repeatedly, we're seeing that 3 cars were rented in the first 5 hours. So we could represent that as subtraction 5 times 3. It could be in parentheses. It could not be in parentheses. Let's read further and see what we're going to need. The business rented. So again, we're talking about renting. And so that's going to be subtraction again. 2 cars to customers during each of the next 3 hours. So we had 5 hours and we have 3 hours. So that's our 8 hours for Monday. So the next 3 hours would be hour 6. They rented 2 cars. Hour 7, they rented 2 cars. And hour 8, they rented 2 cars. So in those 3 hours, they're renting or no longer going to have 2 cars each hour. So we could represent that as 3 hours times 2. Okay? So now our last bullet. The total number of cars that were brought back to the business. Okay, so now they're bringing cars back to the business. So that is going to be, because we're talking about the amount of cars the business has. Okay? So if they brought back, that is going to be addition to the business by customers on Monday, so we're still happening that same day with 17. So this is going to look like plus 17. It's only going to happen once, so we're not going to be using multiplication. So we have a starting amount of 45 cars. Because we're having multiple operations here, we're going to make sure that this first bullet, which is renting 3 cars during each of the first 5 hours, we're going to make sure that that math stays together. We said renting means that those cars are going away from the business. So 5 times 3. In this next bullet, it said rented 2 cars to customers during each of the next 3 hours. I need this, the amount that was rented during that 3 hours, I need that to stay together, so I'm going to group that together. Remember we said rented was subtracting. And then bringing back vehicles. So now at the end of the business day, on Monday, they're going to have 17 more cars. 17 more cars were brought back. So that is going to be adding 17. So let's go ahead and look at our answer options and use our processes of elimination. So I'm looking for subtracting and then a grouping of 5 times 3. This is not multiplication, so this is incorrect. Starting with 45, subtracting 5 times 3, this is correct. Starting at 45, subtracting 5 times 3, this is not multiplication, so this is not correct. Starting with 45, subtracting 5 times 3, this is correct. Okay, so we've now eliminated answer option C and answer option A. So I can strike through those. So now we're just looking at answers B and answers D. So to continue what happened at the business on Monday, they rented during each of the next 3 hours 2 cars. So that is going to be grouped together, and subtraction, both of these have subtracting, a grouping of 3 times 2. Now we're back to the end of our equation. Now remember we said that we're trying to talk about the number of cars the business had at the end of the day. So if somebody returns or brings back a car to a place, that means that they're going to be adding it back to the amount of cars that they have. So that's going to be addition. This is not addition, so our answer is not B. Here is our plus 17, so our answer is D. Equation D represents C, the number of cars the business had at the end of the day on Monday.